Good day everyone. My name is Maria Elizabeth A. Salboro, and I am going to discuss about institutional basis correction. This is for the module 1. Lesson 1: discuss the global view on prison administration, prison antiquity to modernity, the influence of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope John Paul, Pope profile, Walnut Street Jail, King Henry VIII, and King Edward IV, a jewel of King Henry VIII. What is institutional correction? Institutional correction are prisoners to the penal establishment under the corrections of the Bureau of Corrections, and shall include the New Bilibid prison and other institutional correction. Prisons is when a person committed a crime, they will put it in jail or prison. What is prison administration? Carlson and Gareth 1999 stated that prison administration fundamentally involve the applications of both leadership and management techniques to correctional institution. Discussion. In 2018, the Philippines held the 6th highest prison population of 21st Asian countries. And as of 2019, the Philippines population raised of 108.31 million people and 215,000 of these people were incarcerated. Therefore, the Philippines has an circulation citizen. There are 933 prisons running in the Philippines. Unfortunately, they are mismanaged and overcrowded. Below are the 5 important facts about the incarceration system in the Philippines. These are the 5 incarceration system. First is severe overcrowding, pretrial detention, high death throes, vigilant justice, and lastly is corruption. First is severe overcrowding. Rodrigo Duterte won the president elections in 2019. He promised to end the crime within 6 months. The promise also includes the killing of tens of thousands of criminals. Duterte's election led to infamous war on drugs and eventually overcrowded prison. Pre-trial detention. According to the World Prisons Brief, 75% of incarceration within the Philippines incarceration system are pre-trials. In 2018, 141,422 of 188,278 prisoners were pre-trial detention. High death throes. About 5,200 inmates died automatically in the New Bilibid prison or NBP. According to Ernesto Tumayo, the hospital medical chief, these deaths are due to overcrowding, dirty living conditions, and inmates violation. The fourth is vigilant justice. Duterte's war on drugs escalated during his presidency. Jobless citizens were recruited to kill anyone suspect to dealing, buying, or using drugs. This was one of the few ways to some people to make money. Many homeless and improvised people to join vigilance team. Corruption. In August 2018, the public learned a former mayor may have been released from prison for good behavior. He was originally charged for rape and homicide in 1993. Similar story of corruptions in the Philippines. Prisons continue to merge. Prison antiquity to modernity history. The eldest record of the prison came from the first millennia BC. located on the areas of mighty ancient civilization of Mesopotamia and Egypt. So during those time, prisoners are almost always stationed in the underground dungeons where guilty or suspected crimes spend their life either awaiting death sentence or commanded to become slaves, often work as gallery slaves. So their prisoners were held in the poorly isolated building where they could often be visited by their friends and family. So the condition in the European prisoners remained harsh until English royalty started being involved in the justice of system. So the age of modernity prison that we know today started with several prison reform in 19th century England. During that time, prisoners started receiving more care. Concept of rehabilitation was introduced and government around the world, so especially UK and US started reconsidering their views on solidarity confinement, which was the primary source of the increased number of insane, suicidal, and canotic prisoners. So, during the end of 20th century, modern prison was finalized. Concept of rehabilitation services that introduced in 1991. And 3 years before that, first prison immediately solidity from holding of inmates in permanent isolation was formed. So these are the different types of prison. Juvenile, and juvenile is under the age of 18 considered a juvenile. Anyone who is not legal age is never locked up in general prison with adult. Minimum security prison. A minimum security prison may also be referred to as a federal prison camp. Most of the people in minimum security prison are white-collar criminals, which means they committed something like fraud or embezzlement. Low security prison. A low security prison, also called Federal Correction Institution or CFCI, will have a double fines parameter and either cubicle or dormitory system housing. Medium security prison. Most criminals end up in medium security prison. These are probably the prisons you're most familiar with. They have cage or cells style housing, a strict daily routines, armed guard. Maximum security prison. Maximum security prison or high security prisons are dangerous and violent offender. Everyone in maximum security prison is considered high risk. The staff keep a close eye the inmates, and there are very high staff to inmates ratio in this sort of prison. Next is super max facilities. A super max prison is a facilities within the maximum security prison. This is where the most dangerous and hardened criminals are kept. And it is also where the inmates who have trouble being controlled are kept. So ankle bracelet for home detention. In various jurisdictions across the U.S. election, ankle braces are used instead of putting a defendant in custody. Halfway houses. A halfway houses is home for people who would otherwise be either in jail or prison. Halfway houses may be run either locally by the state's federal juvenile option. So a person who is under the age of 18 years old is legally considered as a juvenile. Military prison. Military prison is the different branches of the military. Each have their own prisons that use to house any military prisoners who can break the law, especially if that crime impact nation security. Podular jail. A podular jail is also something referral as a direct supervision jail. It is also the difference from jail that have row of cell. In popular jails, the inmates are houses in units or pods are built around the common center space. So, psychiatric prison. So, when a person breaks the law but is considered to be mentally unfit, a traditional prison, they'll be sent to a psychiatric prison. So, psychiatric prison is like if a person is mentally ill and that person will committed a crime will not put it in jail but rather psychiatric prison. Federal prison versus state prison. So federal prison are run by the Bureau of Prison, which parts of BOG. If the crime is federal, most criminal will be put in federal prisons instead of state prison. So state prison may be similar to one another, but they intended to have some of their own unique street. Each state is able to determine how their own correctional system would be run. So what is different between the jail and prison? So jail is also called as country jail, a facility that locally operated and that's only holding inmates for a short term. Jails are used to hold inmates as they are waiting for a trial or for sentencing, or inmates who have sentenced that under 1 year. So prison may be either federal or state's operation, and inmates have stays for a long time. Some inmates will go to a prison after being sentenced and spending time in jail. So jail is when a person committed a crime and the sentence is only for 1 year. That is called jail. So prison is like more over a year, more than 1 year. So religion's role prison. So religion's value in prison is often its contribution to the individual growth or development of a particular inmate. The focus is to pervasive role of religions in helping lower the chance of divising among inmates. So religion's role in prison, when a prisoner will have a pastor to pray for them So this is also the religion's role in prison. Prison timeline history. So 2nd century BC. Recorded finds at many Egyptian and Mesopotamian archaeology sites proven the existence of earliest prison in the world. 600 BC. The remain of the oldest known prison can be traced to the ancient Rome and their carcere Mamertine prison, originally designed as cistern for water. This ancient prison was used for more than half millennia. 200 AD. At the beginning of the new millennium, one of the oldest prisons outside the Roman Empire was found in the Israel town of Tiberias. Yes. 1166. So English King Henry II commissioned the construction of first person together with a new legal system that used concept of jury. So King Henry II is also known as Henry Mantle, King of the England from federal prison versus state prison. So federal prison are run by the Bureau of Prison, which parts of BOG. If the crime is federal, most criminals will be put in federal prisons instead of state prison. So state prison may be similar to one another, but they intended to have some of their own unique street. Each state is able to determine how their own correctional system would be run. So what is different between the jail and prison? So jail is also called as country jail, a facility that locally operated and that's only holding inmates for a short term. Jails are used to hold inmates as they are waiting for a trial or for sentencing, or inmates who have sentenced that under 1 year. So prison may be either federal or state's operation, and inmates have stays for a long time. Some inmates will go to a prison after being sentenced and spending time in jail. So jail is when a person commits a crime and the sentence is only for 1 year. That is called jail. So prison is like more over a year, more than 1 year. So religion's role prison. So religion's value in prison is often its contribution to the individual growth or development of a particular inmate. The focus is to pervasive role of religions in helping lower the chance of divising among inmates. So religion's role in prison, when a prisoner will have a pastor to pray for them. So this is also the religion's role in prison. Prison timeline history. So 2nd century BC. Recorded finds at many Egyptian and Mesopotamian archaeology sites proven the existence of earliest prison in the world. 600 BC. The remain of the oldest known prison can be traced to the ancient Rome and their carcere Mamertino Montmartin prison, originally designed as cistern for water. This ancient prison was used for more than half millennia. 200 AD. At the beginning of the new millennium, one of the oldest prisons outside the Roman Empire was found in the Israel town of Tiberias. Yes. 1166. So English King Henry II commissioned the construction of first person together with a new legal system that used concept of jury. So King Henry II is also known as Henry Cole Mantle, King of the England from 1154 until his death in 1189. He was the first king of the Plantagenet. Henry becomes Count of the death of his father. He is also married to Louis the Seventh. He's 1215. King John signed Magna Carta, which started the new age of legal system in England. The historic document stated that no man could imprison without trials. So England in 1400s, so England established houses of corrections which houses growing numbers of homeless people. 1600s, so growing number of English prisoners gave birth to the military pardon. 1070s, environment of industrial revolutions and Napoleonic wars brought great increase in the number of incarcerated people in England. For the first time, empty ships were used to the houses of prisoners. 1777, so Englishman John Howard published influential book that prisoner reform. So Englishman John Howard. So he was a philanthropist and early English prisoner reform. Howard was born in North London, either the Hanky of or in Fleet. His father, also John, was a wealthy philosopher. Smithfield Market in the city. 1786 to 1791. Over 50,000 prisoners was transferred from the England to the new American content, and after the start of war, independence to penal colony of Australia. 1779. Penitentiary Act includes in the concept of rehabilitations to the UK prisoners. 1791. Philosopher Jeremy Bentham created design for his perfect prison where government could spy on unknowing inmates. So Jeremy Bentham is the best known in contemporary criminology for his designs of panopticon, The fundamental idea behind the panopticon is that inmates are houses in cell that permit them to be observed by inspection at any time. Bibliography of Jeremy Bentham. He was born in London on February 15, 1748 and died there in June 6, 1832. 1815. For the first time in history, UK government started paying the wage of jailers and inspect condition in prisoners. 1817. Elizabeth Fry's fought for the prisoners' reform solution for the problems of overcrowding women's prison and children's correction. So, Elizabeth Fry's was the English prisoners' reform, social reform, Platonist, and Quaker. Fry was a major driving force behind new legislation to improve the treatments of prisoners, especially female inmates, and as such as called angels of prison. 1829. Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia started enforcement solidarity confinement in an effort to rehabilitate the prisoners. 1835. Prisoner inspect first starting working in UK together with the first person volunteer teacher. So, Prison Act brought prison under the rule of the United States government, or rather United Kingdom. So, great amount of insane, suicidal, and catatonic prison brought some corrections to the legal system that enforce mandatory solidarity confinement in U.S. prison. 1902. In this year, first reform school for delinquent boys is opened in Bonstall, Kent. 1934, American government opened Alcatraz prison from the nation's worst offender. Located in the Bay of San Francisco, this famous prison became part of American history. UK Criminal Justice Act created a model of all models prisoners in 1948. 1983. This year marketed the first occurrence of permanent lockdowns made in U.S. prisoners. 23 hours long period of the cell isolation with communal yard time for all inmates, work, educational programs, and meals in cafeteria. 1989. So, Publican Bay prisoners in California was built for the sole purposes of holding inmates in isolation. Those become first supermax facilities in the USA. So this is the picture of the Pelican Bay prison. So as you can see, it is huge prison. 1991. So the Criminal Justice Act introduced the concept of probation service for all prisoners that served the sentence that was longer in more than 12 months. 1993, modern UK prison serves was formed. 2002, administration of the American was President George W. Bush formed the famous Guantanamo Bay detention camp, which held many war suspects from war in Afghanistan, Iraq, and 9/11 terrorism incidents. So this is the picture of the Guantanamo Bay. So in 2005, American held over 40 supermax facilities who all enforce constant 23 hours period of isolation. History of the Bureau of Corrections of the Philippines. So, corrections in the Philippines started during pre-colonial time. It was, however, organized on individual communities basis. It was only during the Spanish regime when an organized corrective service was made operational. So when American took over in 1990s, the Bureau of Prison was created under the Reorganization Act of 1905. So procedure was transported through all tracks, a mode which the Americans introduced to prison. Prisoners has to contend with dilapidated facilities within the camp areas. So before the reconstruction of San Ramos Prison, the American established in 1904 the Luhit Penal Settlement on a vast reservation of 28,072 hectares. It would be reach an aggregated total lands areas of 40,000 hectares in late 1950s. So owning the increased number of committees commit to the old Bilibid prison in Manila. The new Bilibid prison was established in 1935 in southern Salboro in municipality of Rizal. Muntinlupa in Rizal. So, after the American regime, two more penal institutions were established. They were Sablayan Prison and Penal Farm in Occidental Mindoro under Proclamation No. 72 issued on September 28, 1954, and Leyte Religion Prison under the Proclamation of No. 1101 issued on January 16, 1973. So, corrections in the Philippines. So, course, corrections is one of the improvised pillars of criminal justice administration. It was tasked to save, keep, and to rehabilitate those convicted by the court. Correction is not only a field where inmates are controlled under a regime of discipline, it was not also a ground to dominate those who transpass the law. Third is to settle up does not imply that they should have confirmed from trial period prescribed by the courts. Fourth, we have a growing demand to expand educational programs and therefore the needs of infrastructure. School building must be constructed, and it goes without saying the municipal of classroom. So the fifth is trends. Aggressive posture in guarding the forest at times often given as report on conflagrated logs. Six is the Bureau of Correction must enter into agreements with TESDA for skills development courses. Under these setups, inmate may classified according to skill program. Seventh, the prison camp may be organized into a quasi facility where goods may be manufactured, packed or repacked, assembly of prepared. Eighth, in other countries, correctively service in planned activity undertaken by both government and private corporate organization. Ninth, correctional is on local levels may be privatized like those in some stated in USA and Canada. 10th, as it is where corrections stated at the middle of the crossroad, municipality participating events whether to be relevant to the effort of government to comply in its effort towards programs or to just while away times imposing controls and stay on the sideline. Securing the perimeter fines and reacting on any violence expression of an idle prison community. Corrections enter the guardian of criminal justice when it was used as monoculture of an agencies dealing with prisons and prisoners. 12 is what is even glaring is the facility that for almost 2 decades there were no laws passed pertaining corrections. 13th, there are a number of laws that can be proposed to suit corrections within the parameter of nation's importance. A Corrections Act may be recommended to integrate institutional and non-institutional corrective service under a single department or commission. So, the Bureau of Correction has been incorporated as the new name of the Bureau of Corrections. Yet, the entire provisions that inmates the Bureau is still in charge. So, rules of parole, rehabilitation or probation, and other penal refill may also be locked into the study carefully. Corrections in the Philippines. So this is the last useless these unless these are undertaking and more corrections remain a figment a criminal justice illusions, a fantasy recreated and unexplained expresses in over scratches governments. Corrective service in the Philippines. So the Philippine Crime Justice Administration has defined the pursuit of public safety in terms of how agency react in the face of present day's challenges. There is the law enforcement through the Philippines Nation Police pursued through the prosecution services. So the court through the court, the super court through virus corrections agency, and the community through social services department. So, city jails under the present setups are supervised by the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. Prison are under the Bureau of Corrections. Probation and paroles are direct supervised by the Paroles and Probations Administration. So recent developments do not enforce any progress along this line. The Bureau of Jail Management and Penology has even submitted a plan to observe a provincial jail under the wings of what happened in Bataan province. So, other Asian nations have advised considerability with policies on treatment of those under custody of law with the passage of their respective Corrections Act. So, the Philippines correction, the entire spectrum of it is still basically under the prison law of 1970. Yet setting the aside on gets and chilling pictures of public safety without a nation standard in the treatment of those under custody of law were literally also abuse, cruelly neglect, ill treatment, maltreatment, explosion of or violence to happen. So the Philippine criminal justice system, there are criminal justice system process, criminal justice, court, correction, probation, complaint, information, arrest, police, power, bail, agreement, misuse, and penology. So, there are 5 pillars of criminal justice system. Police or law enforcement to effort arrest on law violators. Prosecution to seek legal punishment. Investigation. Court, a place where justice in administrative, correction or corrections institution. Community, body of the people living in the same place under the same law. So, police enforcement, where example of this is when they arrest a person who violates the law. The prosecutor's example of if a person committed a crime, the prosecutor will seek the legal punishment investigations. So, the 5 pillars of criminal justice system in the Philippines are best beset with the crime view as a major problem in the countries. Considering the complex of crimes, there is no quick and simple explanation or solution to it. However, with the coordinate effort of these 5 pursuits of criminal justice, direct or indirect, somehow is put under check and not so whispered to cause panic and anarchy in society. So, functions of criminal justice system. First, preventing the commission of crime, enforcement the law. Second is protecting life, individual rights, and property. Third is removing dangerous person of the community. Fourth, determining people from include the criminal activities. Fifth, investigating, apprehending, prosecuting, and sentencing those who cannot be determined from violations the rule of society. Rehabilitating offenders and return them to community as the law-abiding citizen. So, goals of criminal justice system. Primarily goals. So, maintaining the peace and order. Second is protect member of society. So, second goal of sub-goal, prevention of crime, the review of the legal of the preventive and supervised measurement. Third is judicial determination of guilt or innocent of these apprehended. Fourth is the proper disposition of those who have been legally found guilty. Fifth, the corrections by suicide approved means of the behavior of these who violate criminal law. Lastly, the suppression of criminal conducts by apprehending offenders who has prevent is inflective. The type of criminal punishment. The type of criminal punishment listed by the University of Oxford Book include the first four of the followings: retribution, deterrence, rehabilitation, and incarceration. So, retribution, this is one of the first form of punishment, especially in idea of an eye for an eye. Those the favors retributing belief in give the victims of crime or society as the whole a sense of satisfaction knowing a crime, receiving the appropriate levels of punishment for the crime committed. Deterrence. So, deterrence aim to prevent future crimes and can focuses on specific and general deterrence. Excuse me. Rehabilitation. Rehabilitation seeks to prevent future crime by alternating a crime behavior. So incarceration, this is another ancient approach that reminds population. Incarceration means removing a person from society. This includes incarceration in prison, house arrest, and it is more from execution. Many feels that flaw in this approach is that doesn't address rehabilitations or deceiving the latter of which intended to remain high society that practice incarceration. Restoration. This is a new approach to criminal justice system called from the offender to make direct amends to the victims of their crime, as well as the community where the crimes occurred. Imprisonment, putting the offenders in prison for the purpose of protecting in the public against criminal activities and at the same time rehabilitating the prisoners by require them to undergo institutional treatments program. Parole. Parole is a conditions release prisoners after saving parts of his or her sentence in prison for purpose of gradually introducing him or her to free life under the guidance of supervision of a parole officer. Probation is a disposition under which defined after conviction and sentence is really subject to conditions impressed by the court or the supervision of probation officer. Fines paid as punishment. So a sum of money that someday is ordered to pay the breaking of the law. Disterio. So the penalty of banishing a person from the place where he committed a crime, rehabilitating so him to undergo near or enter the 25-kilometer perimeter. So that is the end of the discussion. Thank you for listening.